Welcome to episode 35 of the Learn and Explore series. Today's topic, successful high-speed photography. And all you photography talkers, we have a great show in store for you today. Matter of fact, I'm excited to introduce today's guest all the way from Turkey, Amir Bayraktar with NeuroTrigger. Amir, what do you say? Shall we get this going?
Yes, Alex, let's start.
All right. So now Amir is one of the co-founders behind NeuroTrigger, which of course is this cool high-speed trigger that allows photographers to effortlessly photograph lightning, bullets in midair, exploding balloons, and so much more. Now, Amir, I've given our listeners just a taste of what we're going to be talking about here today. Before we dive into our questions, can you take a moment, share with our listeners a little bit about you and your business?
Okay, Alex. I'm Emir Bayraktar, and I am one of three co-founders of NeuroTrigger. Actually, I was an amateur photographer myself, and one day I thought that I could get better pictures if I could use some electronics, as being an electronics engineer. So with my friends, we decided to build an electronic trigger and to take high-speed pictures using that device, and this is how our first trigger was born. Then we received so much demand from our friends about this device, so we decided to turn this into a business, and this is how NeoTrigger was born.
Wow. It's so amazing. You get a bunch of electrical engineers in a room, and the sky's the limit.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are three engineers together, some amazing things are expected to happen.
Indeed, indeed. And speaking of which, Amir, we're about to dive into these questions. To get the ball going, what has you most excited about the photography industry today?
Okay, Alex, I see that different brands are competing with each other so heavily. They offer much advanced photography equipment and cameras to the photographers. So actually, photographers can do much more today as they could do like 5 years or 10 years ago. And this yields to better pictures, to pictures that we have never seen before. And on top of that, I can also say that electronic devices like our team has also some input on this. So this is what makes me exciting about photography of today.
All good reasons, my friend. All good reasons. Let's dive into some of these questions. So, Amir, what is high-speed photography, and what are the kinds of images a photography enthusiast can expect to capture?
Alex, high-speed photography is basically capturing images of events which happen in a very short time. And when I say short time, I usually mean milliseconds. The most known examples of high-speed photography are bullets going through an apple. I'm sure everyone has seen such a picture before, and you see the bursting apple and the bullet flying through it. This is one of the most known examples of high-speed photography. And the speed of the bullet is about 300 meters per second as it leaves the gun. And so if the air gun only a few meters away from the apple, you have only about 3 milliseconds to release the shutter. And on top of that, let's say you have managed to do this, your camera is not that fast, and today an average SLR camera has a lag time of about 40 milliseconds. And once the shutter of your camera completes a cycle, the bullet will be already gone. And as this is the case, if you want to take high-speed pictures, you will need other tools. There are special tools in the market which let you take high-speed pictures, which will be impossible to capture just with human reflexes.
Wow. Speaking of tools, what special equipment is required for high-speed photography to be able to capture some of these shots that you've spoken of?
First of all, you need a flash unit, but I cannot say that a flash unit is a special tool, because if you are a photographer, you definitely need it. And a high quality flash unit will make life very easy for you. Believe me, it makes a lot difference. And flash units have a certain lag time too, and in high speed photography is everything about speed. If your equipment is not fast enough, you cannot capture the picture you want, and if it is fast enough, then you can virtually stop the time. So you need fast equipment. Another special tool that you will need is a trigger unit. A trigger helps you to take high-speed pictures by replacing your reflexes with the speed of electronics. So we have slow fingers, but we have fast sensors and electronic stuff. So microcomputers, all these are much faster than human body. So without using a trigger, your activity will be based on trial and error, and you will have very low success rate. If you work in a studio environment, you can fine-tune your trigger to fit your needs. So for example, you can decide if you want to see the bullet just as it hits the apple, or as it is in the apple, or even you can see it as it is flying out of it. So this is something that you cannot do without using a trigger. These are the tools that you will need as if you want to take high-speed pictures.
Sure. So now, speaking of studio, do I need a large interior space or studio to photograph bursting balloons or breaking glass or other controlled high-speed photography?
Um, no, definitely no. You can even work on a 3 feet by 6 feet table. You don't need a huge room to do this. Just a very little space is enough. And in the most common high-speed pictures, you see that the camera is actually very close to the object, so you don't need to have a wide view range. For example, personally, I usually take high-speed pictures in my office room, and in my office I have a small white table, and it's enough for me. So if you are interested in high-speed photography, you will not need much space. And actually, I think it's even better if your room does not get much light also, because for indoors high-speed photography, your main light source will be the flash unit, and the usual setup will be in a completely dark room. So if you have a room without windows, this will be the best option for you.
Sure. So now, Amir, do I need specific kinds of flash or lighting equipment?
Um, Actually, it all depends on how much you want to spend. There are countless options in the market with a very wide price range, so it depends on your budget. But I definitely recommend buying the best flash unit which you can afford. Let me give you some more details here. In a studio environment, actually, it is the flash unit which decides when to take the high-speed pictures. It is not the camera. As I mentioned, the lag time of your camera does not allow to capture the bullet. So what is the solution? We do this like this. We prepare the scenario in a completely dark room, and we put the camera into bulb mode. And when we trigger the flash unit, whenever we want to take the picture, here I say we trigger the flash unit, not the camera. And a high quality flash unit will deliver the light you need much faster, and it will also stop emitting light much faster. This is very important to reduce the blur on the image. A light source which does not dim fast enough will result in blur and distortion. And don't forget, the subject that you are trying to capture is moving very fast, and it travels quite a long distance in milliseconds, and we have to reduce the distance as much as we can by keeping the environment bright as short as possible, Alex.
Indeed. So now, is a DSLR camera required?
Yes, you definitely need a DSLR camera because you don't have much options here. A DSLR camera lets you to modify the settings to show your creativity. In high-speed photography, it's all about creativity. I know I told you some examples like bullet going through an apple, and we have seen most of these pictures before. So if you want to be noticed, your picture has to be different. You have to use some new techniques, and this is only possible if you are using a DSLR camera. And almost all of the DSLR cameras can be triggered externally, so you can use a trigger to take never seen before pictures. And in the market, there are also some point and shoot cameras which can be triggered externally, but they usually don't offer the settings you would like to change. So I can say a DSLR camera is the only option here. And if you own a DSLR camera, you can go ahead and check if it is a shutter release port. And if you see that your camera has one, you can hook up to a trigger and you can use it for high-speed photography.
So, what are the best lens configurations for high-speed photography?
Again, it is all about speed. The speed of a lens is one of the main factors which determines the quality. A fast lens will help you to take better pictures. And also, if we want to make a comparison, a prime lens will give you better results compared to a zoom lens. But mainly, it all depends on what you are going to shoot.
Okay. What do I need to know to to photograph lightning?
Oh, lightning photography is awesome. I definitely like lightnings, and people like lightning pictures also very much. They are awesome, but they are so difficult to capture. Why? Because they are random. You never know when a lightning is going to hit, so you have to be ready all the time, and your camera has to be ready all the time. And you can always set your camera to long exposure and wait, but as you are human and waiting on the camera just to for the lightning, this is not easy. And in such cases, our solution is a camera trigger. They have built-in lighters to detect the lightning, and they can trigger the camera when the lightning hits with virtually no lag time. And actually, the nicest thing about lightning photography is being unique. You cannot repeat a shot because the next lightning will have a completely different pattern. And this also means that your shot cannot be repeated by another photographer. So it will be a unique picture which has been taken by you. A lightning stays visible for about 300 milliseconds. This is actually quite long time to capture it, but again, as I said, the problem is you never know when it's going to hit. So you may have to wait for long hours, and you can still miss the shot if you are busy with something else, even for a few seconds. So this is how lightning photography actually works.
Sure. Now, speaking of lightning, should I use manual or autofocus when trying to photograph lightning?
Here we have one firm answer, manual focus. In high-speed photography, you don't have the time to adjust the focus. You have to focus prior to the shooting, and you can do this in manual focus mode. Actually, Alex, in other words, actually releasing the shutter has to be done in the preparation phase. And setting the focus is very easy, as you have to be far away from the lightning. Just set your zoom to infinity, and you have to be far away from the lightning. And if you can set your focus anything other than infinity, this means you are too close to the lightning, so back up.
That's one way of putting it. Now, Amir, what kind of equipment do I need to trigger my camera to be able to capture this fast moving lightning?
Alex, the equipment you need is something like Mirror trigger. Mirror trigger is an electronic device which releases the shutter for you at the correct time. It has a built-in optical sensor to detect lightning, and when a lightning hits, it sends a signal to your camera through the connection cable, and all this happens in less than a millisecond. And the trigger does not add any lag time to the process. And if you own multiple cameras, it is also a good idea to buy a trigger which can be used with multiple cameras, so you don't need to buy multiple devices for your cameras. You just change the cable and use it with your other camera as well. Some cameras that do not have shutter release ports, they can be triggered too using the infrared connection or Bluetooth capabilities, but they are not very useful for high-speed photography because they are not fast enough. And also, if you are looking for a trigger, you need to choose something which is lightweight and does not consume too much space in your photography bag.
Sure. So now let's dig a little bit deeper into lightning. How dangerous is it to photograph lightning, and how do I go about protecting myself?
Um, Actually, if you take some precautions, you will be safe. And the most important rule is that you have to keep a safe distance from the lightning. As you know, when the lightning hits, you see the lightning first and then comes the sound. And there should be at least 5 seconds difference between you see the lightning and hear the sound. In general, it is a good idea to follow these rules for lightning safety. You can prefer a metal tripod over a metal one. This is better choice. And because a metal tripod can act as a lightning pole, so it can be dangerous. And also, if the lightning is too close and if your car is close to you, just get into the car. The car is the perfect shelter for lightning.
How exactly does a camera trigger work for high-speed photography?
A camera trigger has built-in sensors for light and sound and other environmental factors. It receives environment data and it processes them using the microprocessor, and the evaluation of the data determines if the camera needs to be triggered or not. So everything happens digitally. And if it is a positive decision, then the shutter will be released. The firmware is also the piece of code which is executed to complete the process. The firmware must have the capability to work with great precision, otherwise your camera trigger will do a lot of false triggering.
So now, does a camera trigger for high-speed photography only respond to the light flash of the lightning or fireworks?
If it is a good trigger, then it shouldn't. As it has an optical sensor, you can use it for very different purposes as well. Let me explain it. A very interesting use of a trigger is a photo trap. And a photo trap is mainly used to take wildlife pictures. Your setup will require a laser source, and you fix the laser source so that it fills laser the sensor of camera trigger, and which is in our case mirror trigger, and whenever the beam is broken, the camera or the flash unit will be triggered. So if an animal walks through the beam, you can take its picture. And another interesting use would be for surveillance purposes. If an intruder breaks the beam and you take his picture using your camera, and so this is how it works for surveillance purposes. Actually, you can see that the options are endless. It just depends on your creativity and purpose. It depends on what you want to do with it.
So, what is time-lapse photography?
Time-lapse photography is basically taking a series of pictures for a certain duration with the same interval between each frame. Then, using these frames, we combine and we generate a video which is actually showing the pictures back by back, and this result is usually a great video which demonstrates what happened, let's say in an hour, in less than a minute. It's like fast forward, but it looks much better. It's fun to watch for sure, but not to shoot all these pictures. So imagine you have to hit the shutter button for an hour at a certain time, and if you release the shutter too early or too late, your video won't be smooth. So you have to keep the timing. In case if your trigger has such a capability, you can use it for this purpose as well. It will take all of these pictures for you, so you don't have to wait and keep a timer. Also, in some cases, the time lapse can last for months. For example, a customer for us bought uh, to take pictures of the construction. So it lasted for about like more than 1 year. It is used to take pictures of the building going up and up every month. So it can be even take so long.
Sure, the audio got chopped up a little bit there, Amir, but you're talking about using your neurotrigger for a construction of a building. Is that what I understood?
Yes. Do you want me to repeat this?
If you don't mind, the very beginning of what you mentioned there.
Okay. In one of our cases, one of our customers has bought NeuroTrigger to take pictures of a construction site.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
they use it for time-lapse purposes to take pictures like the construction going up and up every month. So time-lapse can last for a year, so a very long time.
Okay. How many modes will a good camera trigger have?
Alex, let me count. We have talked about lighting, sound, and time-lapse photography. An ideal camera trigger should combine all of them, like our device Neo Trigger. This means you should be able to perform different kind of photography using the same equipment. And it is a plus if it has further options like time-lapse or laser mode, and all of these functions add value to the trigger.
Wow, Amir, you have shared so many valuable tips, not only about NeuroTrigger and how this cool device works, but also high-speed photography. Before we part ways, can you share with our listeners one last piece of advice, and then also, how can they find you on the web?
Alex, they can just visit our website nerotrigger.com, and one final word, we ship worldwide for free. This is a deal not to miss.
Indeed. So now, all you photography talkers, if you want to learn more about Amir, NeuroTrigger, high-speed photography, you can also see them in the show notes, also on photographytalk.com/learn explore 35. So Amir, thank you very much for your expert knowledge. Photography Talk, thanks, and we're going to see you next time.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for having me.